Welcome everybody to another Pokemon VGC video. It's me Ketsu, and today we're going to be talking about a little bit something different. So a few videos ago I did mention about who I thought would be the top contenders for Worlds, and that got me thinking as to Worlds in general, as well as the future of VGC after this regulation, after this season of going up to Worlds, and what's exactly in store for us after. So it's going to be quite interesting to see, and it's going to be quite interesting to talk about. So if this is the type of stuff you like to enjoy, let me know by leaving a like down below, as well as maybe hitting that subscribe button. It helps me out a ton. But let's start things off with the main part, which is the thing that's right in front of us. Worlds itself comes out in about 2 or so months. We've already gone through the last tournament. Now there's just, you know, little online tournaments here and there. There's not really official tournaments until Worlds. Gives everybody time to prep, gives everyone time to get ready, get time to, you know, get all their flights sorted and everything like that. So it's a bit up in discussion to talk about like who's in the front line to win Worlds. My kind of thing about it that I said a few videos ago was that I believed it was Miraidon, because Miraidon's been doing really good lately. There's been like 3 different ways to use it outside of, you know, choice specs. There's also the choice scarf, which we've seen like around here and there, and then we've also seen the assault vest. So Miraidon's pretty much evolved very drastically during Regulation I, and it's been showing really well. It's been winning a bunch of tournaments. It's been coming up as, you know, the first or second most used duo. It's been an amazing Pokemon. It has not slowed down momentum at all. I also feel like that there's a big case for it to be the #1 contender to win Worlds when it comes out in August. It's going to be quite interesting here, and there's going to be like a few picks that I believe might work, and there's a few that I might believe don't work, and there might be a few underlying, you know, underdogs here. But again, this is something that we're just going to lay into for the rest of this video. But for me, I think Miraidon is in a very clear shot here to win Worlds. Another one that I also think is going to do very well is Shadow Rider Calyrex, because when you normally pair this up or Miraidon with someone else, Miraidon or Shadow Rider Calyrex are mainly the 2 prominent forces here. The other 2 are kind of the other restricted that goes with either Shadow Rider Calyrex, or Miraidon is more so the support or kind of like the backup option in case these guys don't really work out that well. So Shadow Rider Calyrex, I believe, is also another Pokemon that can do very well when this comes, you know, when it comes into World. It's been steamrolling pretty nicely. It's been doing especially well with Zamazenta, another contender that's going to win Worlds just by being associated with Shadow Rider Calyrex. Pretty much these 2 being the main dominant forces together, which I feel like is very interesting here. Shadow Rider Calyrex, again, another Pokemon that's been doing very well, has a bunch of mix-up options. You've been seeing it run Focus Sash, you've been seeing it run Life Orb, sometimes you've seen it with Encore, sometimes you've seen it with Nasty Plot. It's, you know, it can go Terra Dark, Terra Water, Terra Normal. There's a few Terras that you can kind of switch around things here. You know, you've seen it with Spooky Play, you've seen all these other crazy factors here with Shadow Rider Calyrex. So again, another one that has like a bunch of different outcomes or a bunch of different ways to use it. But realistically, this is a very, you know, it's a fantastic mod, and I'm quite surprised that we've not seen Shadow Rider Calyrex do as much before back in Reg G. But I'm guessing now, because of double restricted, it's a lot more chaotic. It's a lot more, you know, it's a lot more to keep eyes on other Pokemon to try and deal with, you know, the factors here. So Shadow Rider Calyrex does have that option to kind of blend in with the chaos and kind of go a bit crazy here with the Astral Barrages, with the Nasty Plot, Psychics, etc. So it's quite interesting here. So I would also, if I was going to put my money on anything, I would either say Miraidon's going to win Worlds or Shadow Rider Calyrex is going to win Worlds. That's just my personal opinion. I think those 2 are just the main points here. I could also be very wrong, but again, let's see how exactly this plays out. Going on to Zamazenta as well, I think Zamazenta as well is pretty great. Works well as a very good defensive option for both Miraidon and Shadow Rider Calyrex. We've seen it paired up with a few things as well. I've seen it personally paired up with things like Lunala. We've seen it with Cali Ice. There's quite a few Pokemon here that kind of get paired up with it very nicely, just because of the defensive capabilities it can offer with things, you know, like Dauntless Shield, with Wide Guard, with Body Press. You don't need to invest too much into, you know, physical attack, because you've already got so much high physical defense, and Body Press just makes it work out for you, which is quite, you know, it's awesome. Like, it's very good. I love Zamazenta. It's my favorite restricted in Scarlet and Violet, favorite restricted at this point period. I love Zamazenta. I think Zamazenta is a great one. Honestly, I think it's really good. Honestly, it's a very good definition of the best defense is or the best offense is a good defense. That's the way you word that. But yeah, it's very cool. I like Zamazenta. I think Zamazenta is a really great mod, to be quite honest with you. I think he's great, and I would also say that he is a top contender mainly for the reason of being associated with Shadow Rider Calyrex for winning Worlds. But Zamazenta also gets his spotlight in his own right. Another one I want to talk about, but one that hasn't really popped up as much, is Koraidon. A lot of people at the beginning of Reg G, as well as, you know, the start of Reg I-ish, didn't really look at Koraidon too much because, you know, you've got things like Kyogre, Tornadus can manually reset the weather. You've got all these factors here that kind of shut Koraidon down a little bit. It's not as easy to, you know, change up terrains because there's not really that many terrain options here. Like, you know, Rillaboom's kind of like the main one for Miraidon. That's kind of been the main counter. Indeedee's also a good one after that. And then you've got like pranksters that can set up, you know, grassy terrain or misty terrain or everything like that. But then you're going to waste a move to do it. So there's not really been certified terrain switches outside of Miraidon, Rillaboom, and Indeedee. But for Koraidon, you've got all these other factors. You've got manual prankster setters like, you know, Tornadus that can change it to rain, which is most likely seen on Kyogre teams. You've got, you know, you've got other Pokemon like Kyogre that like to shut it down as well, because Kyogre's slower than Koraidon. Rain will most likely go up more than anything else. So it's quite interesting here. Not a lot of people really saw the light on Koraidon so much, but I think it's shown up like really well, and then it got like really big traction after EUIC when obviously Wolf put it through with his Perish Trap team, and a lot more people put Koraidon on the map with Life Orb, and, you know, started to go off with that way, and now a lot of people are using Koraidon more consistently. It's been a very interesting ride for Koraidon, but honestly, if I would say that I would love anyone to win Worlds this year, it would be Koraidon, because it's only fitting that, you know, we're coming to the end of the Scarlet and Violet era, so it would be poetic justice in a sense that Miraidon won last year and that Koraidon would win this year, so that way you've got both the bikes winning, you know, respective world tournaments, so that, you know, just to show that they're both equally as good, because normally in these things you kind of see one restricted better than the other, or like one box art legendary better than the other. It would be very fitting to see that both box art legendaries are good within their own right, because they just do so much damage. But Koraidon, I feel like, is more for the Paradox Pokemon, whereas Miraidon can kind of just do what he wants on his own. And having Paradox Pokemon for Miraidon, sorry, is kind of just a plus. But for Koraidon, I feel like his team very much centers around Pokemon needing the sun. Things like Fluttermane, Screamtail, Raging Bolt, etc. These guys really like excel in having the sun up, so it makes a lot more sense in that regards. But hopefully, again, if I wanted a dream pick of winning Worlds, it would be Koraidon, just to see that poetic justice get done. But I think Koraidon as well is just it's a really good Pokemon. It's like it's underlooked in the sense of comparing it to Miraidon, Shadow Rider Calyrex, and things like that, but I think Koraidon is a very good mon in my opinion. I think he's great and definitely someone to look out for when Worlds does come around the corner. There's also Cali Ice. I think Cali Ice is another good one as well. I've been saying this for ages now. I think Cali Ice at its peak is good in Trick Room. I think it's obviously good out of Trick Room because we've seen it play outside of Trick Room and it's done very well. It's won a few regionals and things like that, but I would say Cali Ice is probably in its peak, at least in my opinion, in its peak inside of Trick Room, which has been like, you know, some of the main spots for Cali Ice, and we've seen it, you know, adapt and change now, where instead of just being the pure Clear Amulet, Glacial Lance, high horsepower set, we've seen it come up as the Leftovers Leech Seed set, which kind of, you know, stalling over time, which is quite nice for Cali Ice as well. So yeah, there's quite a few factors there for Cali Ice. It can sneak up on us, I can't lie. Cali, if anyone's gonna sneak up and take a title from us, it would probably be Cali Ice. So yeah, I definitely say watch out for Cali Ice. Cali Ice is definitely going to be something that I feel like is going to be a lot more present in Worlds than we care to expect, because the fact that it's got so much of a good moveset and we've only seen 2 variants of it, I feel like someone's going to kind of blow this thing out of the water and pick something that we are not expecting at all. So I would definitely say be wary of Cali Ice. And then finally, the last Pokemon that I want to say is going to do very well at Worlds, if anything help win Worlds, is going to be Lunala. I think Lunala, again, is a very good Pokemon here. It's kind of like the slower counterpart to Shadow Rider Calyrex. Same typing, you know, does a really good move in Moongeist Beam. You've got, you know, ways to set up with Calm Mind. You've got Wide Guard and Trick Room, 2 very dominant moves here. Wide Guard being just an excellent move to keep on you as well at all times. You've got Moonblast to take out dark types, things that would originally threaten it. We've seen Electric Seed variants with Miraidon. We've seen leftover variants with things like Indeedee. We've seen, you know, Power Hub Meteor Beam with things like Indeedee. There's been a few, you know, factors here for Lunala that make it such a threat. You could either run it super bulky, you could run it super aggressive, and both of them work just extremely well in both scenarios. So it's quite interesting. It's a very interesting set to give it. So I'm kind of impressed with the amount that Lunala's kind of popped up here and kind of forced itself to be on the map, because near the end of Regulation G it started popping up and it wasn't really considered before. But now that, you know, when we saw it win a regional, and then after that it just steamrolled being up in the top spot, like everyone started using Lunala. Like Lunala got really popular with Miraidon, it got really popular on its own. It's just become this absolute freakish beast, what felt like overnight, and it was absolutely insane. So I feel like Lunala is definitely something that where it's just like it's it's a problem if you leave it unchecked. And I feel like that regard is something that could make it a very, very good contender for Worlds, especially since, again, like we said earlier, it's a very chaotic format where a lot of people are trying to get these really fast restricteds like Shadow Rider, like Miraidon, like Koraidon, that want to get, you know, these fast acting moves going as quickly as possible, that you're not really spending time looking at the slow, bulky, stacked up restricted that's sitting right in front of you, that's just going to keep spamming out Moongeist beams and Moon Blasts just to chip away everyone little by little, and before you know it, Lunala's just ran away with the game. So again, Lunala is a very, very like clean pick here. I think Lunala does also have a very, very good tendency to be a Worlds champion this year. So outside of the main 6, we do have a few other Pokemon that I feel like can win Worlds but might not pop up as much as I would think. And the first one I want to say is Terapagos. Terapagos has been that one that's just been consistently consistent. It's you know, its ability is great, its setup is fine. Like Leftovers, Calm Mind, I feel like it's the best set for it. Like we've seen some techs here with choice specs, we've seen some tech, you know, we've seen freakish techs here and there with Terapagos, and I feel like it's okay for the most part. I feel like the way that it plays is very, very complicated in a sense of like you can't get a structured plan going all the time. So sometimes you might have to switch plans on a dime. As long as you get Calm Mind going turn 1, you can kind of do whatever you want. But then if you get hit with Taunt, then you're a little bit stuck. If you don't get hit by Taunt and you try and work around it, you get a little bit stuck. It's kind of weird. Like Terapagos is a Pokemon that is easily counterable, but if you don't counter it, it can win you games. So I don't really know here. Again, this is another factor here where it's a Pokemon that has a lot of potential because it has a lot of good moves to it. It has a ton of good moves to it. Like it's got Dazzling Gleam, it's got Dark Pulse, it's got Aura Sphere. You could even run it with Miraidon and give it Electric Seed. That way it's got Body Press because it's actually quite bulky at 110 base defense. You've got, you know, Earth Power, you've got Energy Ball, you've got all of these really, really good moves here, like Thunderbolt, Tri-Attack, all of these really good moves for Terapagos. You have so much potential sitting in front of it that it's really, really hard to say that, you know, Calm Mind, Terra Starstorm, Earth Power is like the peak of its moveset, because I feel like it's barely been scratched. It's got a lot to it. It does have a lot to it, and I would love to see it get used a lot more. Am I going to see it get used a lot more though? Probably not. I don't feel like people are going to use it. I feel like, again, Terapagos is going to fall into that line where it's just been consistently throughout, just consistently consistent throughout, and then when it gets to World, pretty much the same thing. It's just going to be in the middle of the table where it's better than most restricted, but it's not getting the top cuts. It's not really getting anywhere further than, you know, 4th or 5th place in the tables. Again, I could be wrong. That's just my speculation, but I would love to see Terapagos do better. But thinking about it realistically from what we've seen Terapagos so far, I don't feel like it's going to go anywhere further than what we've seen it already. Now, another one that I want to talk about that I feel like it's kind of fallen off lately is Ho-Oh. A lot of people have kind of let Ho-Oh fall off, and it's quite strange. I personally never used Ho-Oh, but I played a lot against it, especially with running things like Zamazenta. It's been really hard to fight it, and it's been quite interesting. Like, I'm quite surprised, because Ho-Oh, again, does have a lot of good uses to it. It can set up Tailwinds. You can make it super bulky and give it recover. Like, Dual Wing Beat's really good. Brave Bird's really good. It's got Sacred Fire, which has chances to burn. You've got all these really cool moves here for Ho-Oh, and I think it has really good options here. But I think just because of how the meta's been, like, you know, there's just been coincidences where you just kind of get shut down. I think a lot of it has come down to the combination of Miraidon Ice Rider, which is a very, you know, popular restricted duo, because it's like Ho-Oh likes to go Terra Grass. So if you go Terra Grass to avoid Electro Drift, you're just going to get hit with Glacial Lance at some point down the line, and then that's just worse for you. So it doesn't really bode well for that specific matchup, and I think that's kind of why it's gone down in usage a lot, because again, it's a very popular duo restricted against someone that kind of gets pinned no matter which way you kind of go for it. And 9 times out of 10 you are seeing Miraidon and Ice Rider come up at the same time in most games, so it's not the best for Ho-Oh. But are we going to see it pop up? Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised that we actually do see Ho-Oh pop up, but I don't think this is going to be a Worlds winner. But I do feel like we're going to see this a lot more than what we thought we was going to. Now, I'm going to cover these two at the same time because these two are pretty much like the main core of each other, and that is Swordfish, Zacian Crowned, and Kyogre. So these two put together is actually a really dominant force. We've seen this back in Sword and Shield, and we've seen this pop up a lot more in Scarlet and Violet. Again, this has just been a consistent team. We've seen they get paired up with things like Tornadus. We've seen it get paired up with Urshifu, just making sure that the rain is really, like, you know, hard stuck on here. And Zacian being able to hit like just these massive amounts of damage, and, you know, you punish Incineroar for coming in with Intimidate, which Kyogre can just shut down. You've got all these really good factors here that just make things really difficult for other Pokemon to work with, which is what I mean by it's a consistent team. I feel like it's just for the most part, I feel like I don't want to say power creep because I feel like that's kind of harsh, but just other mons have found ways around it. Like it's still not faster. It's still not faster than Shadow Rider Calyrex. You need Tornadus for that, and then a lot more people, especially if they run things like, you know, Miraidon or Raging Bolt. It's not exactly going to work out so well. So it's a bit of a dicey play. It's a bit of a dicey play between these two, and honestly, I feel like these two would probably pop up. I would even go as far as to say I wouldn't even be surprised if these two popped up in like top 16, even top 8. I'd even be that generous to say pop up in top 8. Again, that's just me speculating because I don't see no definite flaws in this team. Like it feels very consistent. I just don't feel like it does well in a hindsight of every other meta team. I just feel like there's better ways to maneuver around this team because of what we've been given with things like terrestrialization and just how these moves have been played around here. So it's harsh to see and it's harsh to say, but I would be generous to say that I probably would see this thing in top 16. However, I'm not entirely sure, but that's just me, you know, giving it grace because I feel like it's got potential. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is the non-restricted Pokemon that we've been seeing pop up obviously a lot around this time in Regulation I, and especially like Reg G and things like that. So it's gonna kind of tie into what I want to talk about for the future of Worlds when after August is done, when Regulation I is finished and everything else is all done. And it's gonna be quite interesting here because we have like all of these really good Pokemon here, especially the big three. But I always call these three the big three: Incineroar, Urshifu, and Rillaboom, because most times these guys are rocking the top usage. Most players are using like either all three of them or a combination of at least two of them. If anything, you're definitely seeing at least one of these three on every single team because they're just really, really good. It's very rare to see a team not have at least one of these Pokemon. It's very rare, so that's why we call them the big three. But it's very interesting here because Incineroar has just been on the top spot what feels like forever in the top usage of non-restricted mons. It feels like he's just been there forever, which honestly I'm not surprised. He is a very, very good Pokemon. Intimidate is great, Fake Out, Parting Shot, or U-Turn. We've seen Assault Vest Incineroar pop back up in usage. We saw it a little bit before a few regulations ago, but now we're seeing it come back, which is again quite useful because not only you've got more of a wall against Shadow Rider, you tank Miraidon pretty well. Especially since special attackers are the way forward in my opinion, because of course Intimidate is just the thing that shuts down pretty much everyone that doesn't run clear Amulet, which can be very, very annoying at most parts. But it's quite interesting to see here, quite honestly. Like I'm very intrigued. Incineroar is just one of those Pokemon where almost any Terra type fits it, almost any defensive Terra type fits it. Like we've seen it run Terra Ghost, then Terra Bug, we've seen it with Terra Water, Terra Grass, Terra Fairy sometimes. We've just seen Incineroar run so many Terra types and it works really well to the point where we've seen a bunch of Terra types go into top 16, top 8, top 4, sometimes even just a random Terra typing winning, going back to, you know, Regulation G. Wolf Glick's team at the time, it was Terra Bug. No one really used Terra Bug Incineroar, so that got put in the forefront as well. So it's quite interesting here. Same with Urshifu. Urshifu's getting put in the aspect a lot more now. Like a lot of people were scared at the beginning of, you know, things like Flood Domain with Moonblast and start with one-shot Urshifu, but now people are kind of like not running as scared anymore. Like people would just go Terra Water to make sure Surging Strikes works, but now we're seeing Choice Band as well, variants of Rapid Strike Urshifu, something I've been very, you know, excited about using as well, something I've been, you know, having fun using recently with Choice Band Urshifu. I think it's really good. Again, a Pokemon that can, much like, you know, Shadow Rider and Miraidon, a Pokemon that can just have so many items on it and works like 90% of the time. You know, Choice Scarf, Choice Band, Focus Sash, Mystic Water, sometimes even Life Orb could work. You've got all these amazing factors for Rapid Strike Urshifu, and there's just like so much you can do with it. There's so much potential. And again, it's just a really, really good mod. Rillaboom has kind of been stale in a sense, where it's just been running Assault Vest all the time, and obviously Grassy Surge, Terra Fire, 99% of the time. Sometimes you might see Terra Water, but 99% of the time it's Terra Fire, then Grassy Glide, Fake Out, Wood Hammer, U-Turn, same 4 moves there. You don't see High Horsepower come up anymore, you don't really see Knockoff come up, you just don't see anything like that anymore. So Rillaboom I feel like is a little bit stale as well, so it's like the only thing you can kind of get a one-up on with Rillaboom is how you train it at that point, where it's just like you can kind of throw somebody off by making him a little bit faster, making him a little bit bulkier, stronger. You got all these weird factors here for Rillaboom, but honestly, Rillaboom, in my opinion, is just become so stale that its moveset will never change. I feel like its moveset within Scarlet and Violet will honestly never change because it's just so good. It's just really, really good. And then, yeah, going into the rest of it, just we've got 3 other Pokemon that we've seen pop up in the top spots of, like, you know, top 12 usage Pokemon within a few regionals here and there. Chienpao, Chiyu, and Ogerpon. These guys as well have just also been popping up. Ogerpon, Half Flame, not so much anymore. Sometimes it's Cornerstone, sometimes it's Half Flame, but we've been seeing Ogerpon dance here and there. Even in the recent tournament in AIC, there was Teal Mask Ogerpon, which did very, very well, which was quite surprising there. Like, Teal Mask Ogerpon did amazingly well. And then going into Terra as well for Teal Mask Ogerpon, you get a speed boost, which makes you faster than, you know, Shadow Rider Calyrex, which is really, really good. Something that is a huge plus. So it's quite interesting to see Ogerpon still getting, you know, different variants to itself and seeing it change all these, like, even when so much time has passed. I remember at the beginning, nobody was using Teal Mask Ogerpon. Now here we are, last tournament before Worlds, Teal Mask Ogerpon going into the top spot, which is absolutely insane. Like, that's crazy to me. Not exactly top spot in winning, but like, you know, top 8, top 4, top 2. It's insane. Like, it's absolutely insane just to see how much that everyone's changing the meta, which still makes me believe that there is still a lot of room for innovation before Worlds. I feel like there's something that's really going to kick us out of the water here. So the reason why I'm talking about Pokemon like Incineroar, like Rillaboom, like Ogerpon, it's because I want to kind of talk about what is shaping up after Worlds. And in my opinion, I feel like it's going to be something that we've already seen before. It might be something to stall us up until Pokemon Champions. It might be something stalling us up until Gen 10. And honestly, I feel like it's going to be something on the lines of we go back to Regulation A again. Now, a lot of people speculate that we are going to see, you know, Mega Evolutions in the next season and things like that. And I would love to. I just personally don't feel like that's going to be the case. I could be, again, 100% wrong. But the reason why I say this is because the other day we did get a release date on all of the new dates of the 2026 season, which was, you know, which was huge. We got a bunch of new events, we got a bunch of new stuff, a bunch of new locations, which was, you know, amazing. It was amazing stuff. It was amazing news, and it was quite insane. But the reason why everybody's feeling like we're gonna get Mega Evolutions is because on the poster it is going to be, it's Mega Charizard, and you wouldn't put in Mega Charizard if Mega Evolutions wasn't, you know, allowed in, you know, competitive play. And this is quite interesting here because a lot of people took that photo and was just like, oh, Mega Evolutions are like the next season. And I'm kind of on the fence. I don't personally believe that we're going to get Mega Evolutions, and if we are, it's not going to be until like the later half of the 2026 season when Champions gets announced. I personally feel like at Worlds they're going to announce when Champions is going to debut and when it's going to get released. So I don't personally feel like it's going to be the case where Worlds comes up, they announce Champions, and Champions is like, oh, we're gonna come out in like, you know, 2 weeks in September when the new season starts. Get your megas, get everything, go absolutely ballistic, because then it needs to have time. It needs us to, you know, get in line for it, because some people might not have Mega Evolutions. Some people, you know, some people might not have a 3DS to play, you know, the games where megas debut, X and Y, or Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, where you can only get those megas. Some people might not be able to do it properly from Pokemon Go. Things like that kind of, you know, throw it off a little bit. So in my opinion, this is how I feel like it's going to go. So everything's gonna go, it's gonna be the last day of Worlds, we are going to get Champions announced, and it's going to be a release date announcement. I feel like Champions is going to get released early next year, because that way when ZA comes out in October, it gives us enough time to play through the game, it gives us enough time to get all of the megas, and it gives us enough time to get everything trained and stacked up and ready. Once that happens, then we're going to potentially get a Gen 10, something that is compatible with Champions. If Legend ZA is not compatible with Champions, we don't know. But once that happens, we are then going to go further, and then it's going to say, right, get your Pokemon from ZA, put them into home, and then put them into Gen 10, or like put them into Champions and things like that, or just like, yeah, basically get them from ZA, put them into home, and then put them into Champions, basically, which is quite, I feel like that's just the way they're going to go. But I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, and if anything, I don't even think Champions is going to come out this year. I think it's just going to be the sense of we're just going to be playing Scarlet and Violet for a little bit longer until Champions gets announced, and then by the time the next season comes out, whenever that is, whenever they want to swap out the next regulation. So let's see, if we did regulation, whatever the next regulation is, I'm assuming regulation A, because again, Pokemon has not been scared to redo regulations. We've seen that regulation G, when it's gone G to H to back to G to stall for I, like we called it out the first time. I wouldn't put it past me that they would just go, right, Worlds is done, we've spent, you know, a good amount of a year now going through restricted, double restricted, you know, we've seen Incineroar pop up everywhere, Urshifu, Rillaboom. What do all three of them have in common? They're not in the base game, and they're sometimes you have to bring them from home. So it makes a lot of sense here that we want to again show off, not only show off Generation 9, but we want to give it a good send-off by making sure that it is Regulation A all over again, forcing people to, you know, change up the meta, change up everything different, bring back old Pokemon that we've not seen, you know, in a while, like Goldengo, like Dondozo, like, you know, King Gambit, all these other Pokemon here. And then when that goes around and we get to January or potentially February, Pokemon Champions comes out, and then whenever that regulation finishes, when it's like, oh, Reg A again, or Reg A.2 whatever finishes, then it's like, right, don't worry about that, don't worry about Scarlet and Violet anymore, we now go into Champions. But that's kind of like my prediction for it. I don't really feel like, again, I feel like Pokemon want us to enjoy ZA and not have to get like super ready super quickly, because it doesn't make any sense for especially newer players that are coming into Pokemon, that are coming into VGC, to miss out on older games, because it might not be easy for them to get 3DS, like to get a 3DS, to play X and Y to get Megas, to play Auras to get Megas. It might not be that easy for them. So it makes a lot more sense here, and it gets a lot more quality of life to just play a brand new game for a brand new, in a sense, generation of players, to play Legends EA, to then get all the Megas they can, because I'm pretty sure most, if not all, the Megas are going to be debuted into Legends EA. We get all of them, especially the new ones as well that have been, you know, potentially leaked. I've heard there's new ones. I've not done digging to confirm or deny it, but I've heard that there's new Megas. So not only you get the old Megas, you get the new Megas, and then you throw them all into home to get ready to put into Champions. And then that way you can easily get access to Scarlet and Violet, you can easily get access to ZA, and then you can all put them in home to then put into Champions. It just makes it a lot more sense that way. It makes things just a lot more straightforward, instead of being like, right, everybody rush, Worlds is done, Champions is out, go get everything. Like, oh, but what about ZA in October? Don't worry about that, just go, just go do it, everybody just go. It forces a rush. It forces everybody to rush. At least this way, it's calm, everyone can play ZA without needing to rush, and when you get your Megas, you just transfer them when you need. It just makes things a lot more easier. But that's kind of my opinion on how Worlds is going, and how the future of Worlds is going to be after August. But in a summary of everything, I would personally say, coming up to Worlds, I feel like Miraidon is most likely going to win again. I don't see it not happening. If it's not going to be Miraidon, then I don't see it not being Shadow Rider Calyrex. If I want to put my money on someone, I would say Koraidon, but that's me having a wish rather than being realistic. And the rest of them are probably just going to be, you know, the paired restricted for the Pokemon I've just mentioned. And then, you know, when Worlds gets to the end, they're going to announce that, you know, there's a new regulation. In my opinion, it's going to be Regulation A again, because that just gives you a lot more chances to put in a bunch of different Pokemon. It throws out, you know, restricted, it throws out Paradox Pokemon that we've seen everywhere, it throws out Pokemon from Pokemon Home like Urshifu and Incineroar, who's just been everywhere as well. It just makes a lot more sense, like almost a fresh coat of paint, just to be like, right, throw all these overpowered, insanely used Pokemon out the window and just go back to basics. Everybody go back to basics and just get the learning curve going from when we go into Champions, which then they'll announce is going to be at the start of next year. And when that comes around, everybody will have time to play Legends EA, because it will be October, November, December, about 3 months, which should be enough time. And then everybody just gets their stuff done, gets it all ready, and then puts it into Champions, where the season after that last Scarlet and Violet era will come to a close, and then we move on to, you know, the Champions era, the Gen 10 era, etc, etc. But that's kind of my opinion on how things are going to go. I could be completely wrong. I could be 100% wrong about everything. It might not be Miraidon winning, it might not be Shadow Rider Calyrex winning. For all we know, it could be something like Lugia winning. We have no idea who's going to win Worlds. We have no idea who's going to put a spin on things. We have absolutely no clue. This is just my speculation from seeing patterns here. And again, I could be absolutely wrong on what they're going to say is the next regulation, how Champions is going to get done. I could be completely wrong on all of it. It's just my speculation. But what do you guys think? Let me know your opinions about what you think about what's coming up for Worlds. Who are you excited to see play? Who are you excited to, you know, see as a team? What are you thinking about Champions? Do you think it's going to get released this year or next year? And what's your thoughts about ZA as well? And what's your thoughts on the new event schedule too? I've been very, very excited, and I am super, super excited. Also, Pokemon, how dare you? I have a loving wife. How dare you put EUIC on Valentine's Day? I've got a bone to pick with you, Pokemon, but that's for another time. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Catch you guys, and I'll see you very, very soon. Okay, bye.